Keep your memes to yourself.
Yeah, I don't even want to see it. I don't care how funny it is.
Fine, guys. I won't show you my meme.
You're listening to Let's Talk Fantasy Football, where men of fantasy genius have realized, hey guys, we don't need real football skills to dominate on the fantasy field. Yeah. So slap on your pads and grab your helmet. Shit's about to get real.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Let's Talk Fantasy Football. I'm your host for this week. My name's Nick Walsh. I'm here with my two lovely, talented, beautiful, sexy, hot co-hosts. You can omit some of those adjectives if you want to. Vinny Gonzalez first. Vinny, what's up, dude?
Hey, Walsh. Thanks for the kind words.
Yeah, I love calling you hot. And I'm also here with none other than the DON, Don Chrisman. Don, this is our first podcast this year together. I'm excited.
Dude, I'm excited. And I'm also wondering if this could be my second year with no casting with Matt.
I don't think so, and we might get into that a little bit later. But Shrek has some plans, but you know, a boy can dream, I guess. So anyway, today, guys. Well, first of all, I'd like to mention that our podcast is sponsored by NoHalftime.com, and the No Halftime app isn't your typical fantasy sports service. You get to create one-on-one fantasy matchups, and you can use the code LTFF for a free sign-up bonus. So get on that, guys. But basically tonight, myself and my two co-hosts will be covering some NFL news, some breaking stuff, and some interesting stuff out of NFL camps. We'll be starting the NFC North preview with the Lions and the Vikings. And I don't know, Vinny, do we have Ed's question of the week? Did Ed give us a question this week?
I completely forgot again, but I can text him right now in 5 minutes, so I could do that.
Well, maybe we'll have a question. Who knows?
Yo, Ed, do you have a question? Also make it quick. We're currently casting.
That's exactly what I'm going to say.
Well, fair enough. So I'll admit I don't know when exactly this is going to be out and when you guys are going to be listening to this. We are recording it in the middle of the week here, the week after July 4th, but our fearless leader, Nick Shrek, is currently on vacation, and I hope he's having a wonderful time, but man, we are completely lost without him. So I don't know when this is going to be up, but no matter when you guys are hearing it, we're going to have some good stuff tonight breaking down those first two teams, and then later on, or potentially the same time, who knows, I don't know, but Don and Rogers will be going through the Packers and the Bears, because since they are both Packers fans and both hate the Bears, I'm sure that will be a completely unbiased podcast, right, Don?
Oh yeah, I mean we're gonna have both sides there and make it real fair for each side. So look forward to a lot of good Packer stuff and fuck the Bears.
An honest assessment of Jay Cutler is almost guaranteed.
I don't even know who you're talking
absolutely.
about. And he probably won't be mentioned once.
Well, so before we do that, we're going to get into some NFL news. You guys ready?
Yes.
I'm ready.
All right, so first up, LaShawn McCoy, that nightclub incident. I don't even remember what it was. Investigation was dropped. Don't worry about it. LaShawn McCoy's good to go for this year. You guys got any opinions on that?
Well, no, not really. But what happened was he punched undercover cops, but whatever.
Oh, right. Okay, I remember that now. That makes sense. All right, well, anyway, apparently when you're a pro football player, there are no consequences to punching undercover cops. That's the moral of this story.
Yeah,
So,
and by undercover I meant just off-duty, I'm sorry. But
okay. Off-duty.
Yeah, I meant off-duty. Or they could have been undercover, who knows?
They might not even be cops at this point.
Yeah, maybe they're not cops anymore. I don't know. We should ask them. Maybe they're listeners of the podcast.
Got punched so hard by LaShawn McCoy they became not cops anymore.
All right, so moving on from LaShawn McCoy's time-altering and reality-altering punches, Denard Robinson was found sleeping in his car while it was in a pond this week, which is one of the most bizarre stories I've ever heard. Apparently, he was not on any sort of drugs or alcohol at the time, which honestly makes it more bizarre. It only would make sense to me if he was really messed up.
Well, they say that when you're so tired that you can get pulled over for being technically a DUI for driving drunk because you're so tired. Apparently, that was the case where he was so tired that he parked his car in a pond, fell asleep, and then when they tried waking up, he still was too tired to wake up after he opened his eyes to see the cops knocking on the door, and then continuously tried opening his door into the pond, and they're like, "No, bro, like you're in a pond, like you can't open the door. You have to go out the other side."
John, you made that sound way more peaceful than it probably was. I don't think he parked his car anywhere. I think he crashed right into a fucking pond.
Oh, no, he was like, no, I'm pretty sure he pulled up. He's like, yeah, this pond looks like a pretty good place to park while I take a nap.
That's where I normally park my car when I take naps in a pond. All right, so again, I don't think that has any real fantasy relevance. It's just kind of funny. This one kind of does have a little bit of fantasy relevance. Robert Woods reportedly played half of the year last year with a torn groin. First of all, that is like extremely tough. That's metal as hell. And second of all, does this kind of give reason to be a little at least optimistic while potentially Sammy Watkins is out about Robert Woods' production, or do we still not care about him? Vinny, I'll start with you.
I think you'd care a little. When we were talking about the Bills, I forget who I was doing. I think it was with Shrek. We were talking about how Robert Woods was somewhat relevant for a little bit, like at sporadic times, like he was a waiver wire pickup or like a bye week fill-in, and he's been pretty good at like the opportunities he's been given. So if Sammy Watkins misses any time, Robert Woods is going to be better than his half torn groin when he was playing with that. So it's something to keep your eye on, I guess.
I also think he added value after you called him metal as hell. I don't know. I don't really.
That's pretty fair. I think that would add value there.
I think like Robert Woods has like never really been too fantasy productive. Like he's always kind of had like a share here or there, but nothing where I'd be throwing him in my lineup just because Sammy Watkins is out.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I think it's minorly interesting, but not a huge deal.
Yeah.
So let's move on to Nelson Aguilar, who it was reported he will start camp as the number 2 receiver for the Eagles behind Jordan Matthews. Last week, Rogers and I were very staunchly anti-Nelson Aguilar because last year he was terrible. We both said we would rather draft Ruben Randall than him, but I'm open to changing my opinion depending on camp and preseason. Do you guys have any interest in Aguilar?
No.
It's too early, but I think that you should expect upward productivity from both him and Jordan Matthews this year versus last year. But I don't really foresee any interest in him just yet.
Okay. Vinny, that was a no on your part?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little biased. He burned me last year because I was really pumped up on the good preseason that he had last year. So I'm probably going to stay away from Nelson Aguilar. He was really, really bad last year.
Okay, fair enough. So the next bit of news here, Trevor Siemian, the backup quarterback for the Broncos, is running close behind Sanchez to take that starting job. That's Mark Sanchez, for those of you keeping score at home. Sanchez apparently has a lot of work to do in that offense. Does this affect – well, first of all, I don't think either of those guys are really fantasy relevant, but like this kind of matters for like Demarius.
And Emmanuel.
Yeah, like what do you guys think? Yeah,
it affects everything.
It matters for like everything but these guys in terms of what we care about. But does Trevor Siemian starting worry you, or does the potential of that worry you, Vinny?
Sort of. I mean, I don't know anything about this guy, and I remember when the first report came out a couple of months ago or weeks ago that like Sanchez was having a hard time, and like there were other guys approaching on the position like they could possibly start. So it's just like it's like going into the unknown, and the Broncos have changed so much since the Super Bowl that it's making me want to stay away from most of what's going on over there.
Yeah, I mean, just to think how crazy it is. I mean, DT has always been like the past 2 years, like a top 5 to top 10 receiver, like going into the past 2 seasons. And now, I mean, looking at his ADP, it's like kind of like the end of the 3rd round, and you're looking at Emmanuel Sanders, which is like looking at the beginning of the 7th round. That's kind of crazy. I mean, now you're looking at, you don't even know who your quarterback's going to be between Siemian or Mark Sanchez. I mean, that's a little worrisome. you don't really know how much of a cushion you're going to have, even though DT's still a talented guy. I mean, the productivity's still going to go down.
Yeah. Good point. I mean, Simeon was a 7th-round draft pick, so it's not like this is a guy with a great pedigree or a guy who is expected to be a starter in the NFL. So I think it's a little bit worrisome, but I mean, we'll see how camp plays out there. And then moving on to our last news item, Travis Benjamin had an undisclosed injury on the last day of spring camp. So obviously we don't really know the severity of this, but it's not good to see this sort of thing. Does that affect your thoughts on him going into the season, Dom?
I find Travis Benjamin as being on the Chargers here kind of more interesting to more of what my game plan would be. Like I was doing some mock drafting, and Travis Benjamin was still possibly going undrafted or the last round. So it would have been more interesting to see without him being injured where he would be going into preseason and all that, because obviously we saw some good flashes with him in Cleveland. So with him being with Phillip Rivers and going to be that number 2 receiver beyond Keenan Allen, it just kind of seemed a little bit exciting. And who knows now? We got to see what this injury is like.
Vinny?
Oh, sorry, guys. There was a skip in my thing.
Vinny, you got any thoughts there? Or?
Yeah, I mean, he was a guy I was looking at, later, like Don was saying, and where was he going? He was going in very, very late already, so he was one of my sleepers already. So, like what Don was saying, I really got to see what the injury was and if it's going to have long-lasting effects or just basically what it is. So I'll just reserve judgment on that.
All right, fair enough. Let's get into the NFC North, guys. Let's start off with a team that I think is very interesting this year. I'm pretty intrigued by a lot of their players, and they're definitely the more interesting of these two teams on the aggregate. So let's start with the Lions. And I think before we get into individual players, there's some things that we need to kind of go through here in terms of the overall team because of, you guessed it, Jim Bob Cooter.
Woo.
Woohoo! All right, so he basically he took over midway through last year. He didn't get to implement his whole offense, but he did do some things there. So I was reading a lot of sort of Lions beat writer breakdowns of what they thought Jim Bob Cooter was going to do this year, and basically he uses a man blocking scheme, whereas the previous coordinator Joe Lombardi used a zone blocking scheme. This is good because their offensive line is better suited for a man blocking scheme just based on their size and athleticism. He also wants to get the ball out of Matthew Stafford's hands very quickly and is likely going to use a lot of routes close to the line of scrimmage to do that. So that would seem to favor guys like Golden Tate and Theo Riddick right off the bat. He's also been good just historically at identifying what his skill players are good at. So taking a guy like Theo Riddick, for example, and using him out as a pass catcher out of the backfield, taking Golden Tate and running those short routes with him. So it'll be interesting to see what he does now with new guys like Marvin Jones. Also, again, just last year, the Lions were first in pass percentage in the NFL, 65.63%. So that's something to take note of. They are most likely going to be a very high pass volume team. So with that being said, let's get into Stafford. What are your guys' initial thoughts on Stafford currently going as the quarterback 20, 12.08 in 12-team PPR leagues right now, according to Fantasy Football Calculator? Vinny, I'll start with you.
I think that's a little crazy because I started when I was doing research for this one, I was getting real pumped on Matthew Stafford, just finding out all this, basically most of the stats you just said that I was looking into. They attempt the 4th most passes and the completions in the league, and Stafford only threw the ball 30 times in 14 of the 16 games they played. So he only missed 2 games without throwing 30 passes. That's a lot of volume, and if he gets a lot of this volume, it's just going to keep continuing to increase productivity. So he's going to get a lot of opportunities. Like you said, they want to get it quickly out of his hands. I wouldn't be surprised if he throws I think he threw for somewhere in the low 600s last year, so I would imagine it's going to float around there or increase more. So the opportunity for Stafford is absolutely there, even with the loss of Megatron. And him going behind guys like Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, is just a little confusing to me, because I think I would be cool if I did the wait on QB strategy and you get Matthew Stafford late in the 12th. I think that's completely normal.
Yeah, Don, what's your take there?
I don't really have any disagreements with Vinny on that. It is a little surprising. I mean, yeah, it's still a little surprising where he's going. I'm looking at the fantasy football calculator with with PPR added on that, and it's like the middle of 14th round, which is pretty wild. And I would choose him over still Marcus Mariota or Jameis Winston. But again, he did lose value on Calvin Johnson, but he's still going to be throwing the ball a whole lot. That's what Detroit Lions have always done. So I don't know. It's a little crazy, but I would be okay with waiting until the 12th or 14th round if he's still around for Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. I think he's potentially a nice value late. Vinny, I was going through a lot of the same stuff with you in terms of the pass attempts. He is likely to see around 600 or more this year. And he was also pretty efficient. I mean, I say pretty efficient. He was middle of the pack efficient. He was 14th in quarterback rating, 14th in adjusted yards per attempt. And that was actually his most efficient season ever last year, which is kind of disheartening. You might expect him to be a little less efficient last year, but I'm not sure if that's some of that could be the new offense, basically, be allowing him to be more efficient. Some worrisome things for him. 82.5% of the Lions' touchdowns in 2015 were passing touchdowns. That's very high, compared to most teams. But having said that, their roster construction does kind of lend itself to more passing touchdowns. Their two running backs that they play the most are going to be Amir Abdullah and Theo Riddick, neither of which are really goal line guys. They do have Zach Zenner and Stephen Ridley there, but we'll have to see how that pans out. Also a little bit worrying is that his passing attempts have decreased each of the past 4 seasons. They're still above, more than the average, but they have been decreasing. And also his 32 touchdowns in 2015 was, quite high for him. He averaged 23.7 touchdowns per season during the previous 3 years. So I think there's some reason to think that Stafford may regress a little bit in terms of touchdown production, but the volume there makes him worth it to me in that sense. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to add on him?
No,
that was fine.
All right, let's move on to the running backs. We got a couple of guys here. I already mentioned them: Amir Abdullah, Theo Riddick, Zach Zenner, Stephen Ridley. Amir Abdullah is likely to see the lion's share, the carries, lion's share. God, I didn't even mean to do that. That sucked. That was terrible. I should leave the podcast for 5 minutes, put me in timeout. So Amir Abdullah will likely see the majority of the running back work. I guess I'll start on him in terms of what I think. Currently, he's going running back 29, beginning of the 7th round. I'm interested. He wasn't highly efficient in 2015, but he was 7th in the league in success rate, which kind of measures how often a guy gets what he should be getting based on the blocking and based on the down and distance. So he was relatively he didn't really break a ton of big runs, but he was pretty good at getting what was blocked for him. He only had he didn't have a ton of work last year, but 90 carries and 27 targets in that offense left with Joique Bell, so there's a lot of room for him to grow. And I think there's a lot of room for him, even with Theo Riddick, to become an effective pass catcher, because over a quarter of the Lions' targets in 2015 went to running backs, and 68 targets total went to running backs not named Theo Riddick. So if Abdullah gets, say, maybe 50 to 60 of those targets this year, that alone makes him probably worth it at that price. Don, what's your opinion on Abdullah here?
Yeah, I actually really like that he's fallen to this spot, because if you guys remember, right before, it was like that, the end of August, right before the season was going to kick off, Amir Abdullah blew up, and everyone was drafting him super high.
Mm-hmm.
They were making him like their number 2 running back. They were going to start him. Like so many people were doing it. That he ended up falling off, being a bust for the most part for a lot of those people that had such high expectations. Where now, like you said, Joique Bell is gone. He is going to have, quote unquote, the lion's share. So I think he's going to beat that expectation of what you're now having this year, because they really have watered down his ADP. So I think where he falls gives you a lot of opportunity to go, especially in a PPR or half-point PPR, to go a little extra receivers, and I think you would find a good pick in the later rounds for Amir Abdullah and still have pretty good productivity where you can kind of fall on him. So I really actually like Amir Abdullah a lot.
See, I'm a little more concerned because I feel like this happened last year where he was kind of almost in the same spot as far as ADP, and then he had one good preseason game, and everyone thought he was the second coming of Barry Sanders, and all that shit just started hyping up more and more. And I think he wound up going in like somewhere in the 6th or 7th, 5th round, somewhere in that zone. But that's where he'll likely be going this year. And it just seems like this is like a running back committee that is just, there's going to be too much to go around, like the passes that are going to Theo Riddick, the goal line carries that are probably going to go to Zach Zenner or Stephen Ridley. It's just too much to invest. Like there's not too much to invest, but there's other guys that I would rather pick that are in that zone, like Jeremy Hill, Melvin Gordon's in that area, Chris Ivory, even Theo Riddick is in the same zone as far as running backs getting drafted in that area. So it's just, I don't know if enough work is going to go around, and Amir Abdullah only scoring 2 rushing touchdowns and three total touchdowns last year. It just seems like the opportunity is probably going to stay around the same. So I don't expect an increase in the amount of work or much, and especially with Matthew Stafford probably passing so much, it's just going to be not enough to go around in this offense.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think that, I mean, it's fair. The touchdown thing is something that's concerning for me, but I think the volume of work may be enough to make up for it. So let's move on to Theo Riddick. Like you said, sort of in that same area, 3rd pick of the 8th round, running back 34 overall. Theo Riddick had 99 targets last year. Is he going to do that again this year? Is he worth it in the 8th round? Vinny, let's go back to you.
I don't know if he'll get 99 targets. That's absurd. I think that's crazy for a running back. But as you mentioned before with Jim Bob Cooter, he loves getting the ball out quick, and if they're going to utilize Theo Riddick as he should be, it's not crazy to think he'll get like 70, 80 targets at least, and possibly somewhere around 60 catches. So I think in that area it's okay, and of course he could definitely do more. He's shown the potential to be a 99 target kind of person. So if they're going to utilize him out of the backfield, it could be worth it in that area. He's going around basically all the pass-catching backs. Like Charles Sims is right around there. A round or 2 above him is Gio Bernard. So I think he's about priced right, and I think there's enough room to grow where he can be a very good flex player for you like he was last year.
Yeah, I think he's priced pretty right in the sense where personally experiencing with him last year where I had a team where I had so many injuries and I started rocking Theo Riddick in the flex, and he was just surprisingly pretty consistent with that PPR basis especially, where I was actually pretty pumped that I had picked him up and had him. So he's someone that's a nice stash that you might not play right away, but especially mid-season, especially if injuries do occur, that you're probably going to be, again, surprised with some pretty consistent play with Theo Riddick.
Yeah, I agree. He's a safe pick there. He had 6 or more targets in 9 out of his 16 games last year. Not coincidentally, he had 9 games with double-digit PPR points last year as well. He doesn't have the upside that other guys do because he's never going to be a huge touchdown guy, and he's never going to be a huge carry guy. Early in the offseason, they were like, we're going to give Theo Riddick the ball more, like in between the tackles. It's like, oh yeah, you're going to give that guy who averages 2.9 yards to carry the ball more in between the tackles. But as long as he keeps that pass catching, back roll, that's completely fine. And I think he's a nice safe pick there at the beginning of the 8th round for that value. The other 2 guys that are there are going to be the guys who will probably compete for goal line work that we said before Amir Abdullah most likely wouldn't get, and that's Zach Zenner, the undrafted rookie undrafted second-year player, and then Stephen Ridley, who, hasn't been healthy in a couple of years, and Don loves for some reason. Don, do you still love Stephen Ridley?
Dude, he's going to have so many touchdowns.
Could you imagine? He just has 9 touchdowns and 40 yards, and Don just loves him.
Just starting him every week. RB2, baby, Stephen Ridley.
That's right.
6.5 points every week.
All 3 running backs played is Amir Abdullah, Theo Riddick, and then Stephen Ridley.
But seriously here, it's probably worth monitoring which one of these guys is going to get the goal line carries, just as a guy you can pick up and start when you're super desperate. Is there anything else to be said really about them, or?
No.
I did see that Zach Zenner is running away with the job, which is funny, and I laughed. So don't have to worry about Stephen Ridley, I don't think.
Yo, chill.
All right, let's move on to those pass catchers, and we'll start with Golden Tate. This is something, I guess, in terms of the pass catchers, another sort of general stat here. Between Calvin Johnson and Lance Moore, the Lions lost 192 targets, 117 catches, 1,551 yards, and 13 touchdowns. Now, most of that was Calvin Johnson.
I was going to say, I want to know how much of that was actually Lance Moore.
It was 43 targets and some catches, but it was actually 4 of the touchdowns. I was amazed. Lance Moore had 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's all Lance Moore really was good for. Was
I feel like I saw
a touchdown here and there.
I feel like I saw all of those touchdowns live. I'm like, Lance Moore caught a fucking touchdown.
Just this is so weak. But anyway, so we have to talk about how they make that up and who gets that increased volume, basically. So let's start with Golden Tate. Yeah, I guess so. Wide receiver 21, first pick in the 4th round. That seems high to me. Vinny, what do you think?
I kind of like that a lot.
Okay, never mind then. I'll shut up.
Sorry. No, please, you're probably going to throw a stat out and just destroy me. But
I actually don't have a ton of great Golden Tate stats, but go for it.
All right, I just thought it was very interesting to see how he managed to be overall people were drafting him high last year, and I think they're doing it again this year. But I think the price is warranted now that Calvin is gone. He finished as wide receiver 24, which is a little bit disappointing for what people are expecting. But with Calvin there for healthy all 16 games, and for Golden Tate never to eclipse 100 yards, he still racked up 128 targets, 90 catches. Not a lot of yards at all, and then 6 random touchdowns. So I can only imagine all of these numbers increase. I just don't see how they he's their possession guy basically, and now that Marvin Jones is there to be not Calvin Johnson, but he's a red zone target. He's taller than Golden Tate. He might be playing the 1 spot, even though Golden Tate is clearly the better receiver on the team. I just think that Golden Tate is going to have so many targets, tons of catches. I really like him in PPR. I really like him in standard. I'm just very about Golden Tate. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember, but what you were saying, Vinny, his ADP went up last year and everyone had high expectations. But again, that was because the year before was when he had the really good year with Detroit.
Without Calvin Johnson.
Because Calvin was hurt. Because I don't know if you guys remember, I had him that year in our league, and I was trying to sell him to everyone because everyone else sucked except him. I'm like, well, Calvin's coming back, but this guy's lighting it up. And that's really what it's going to be. So in 2014, he had 1,331 yards versus last year, which was 813. So his average yard per catch was about 13.4. And then he ended up having not as many touchdowns, but he had he had good yardage in 2014. And again, Calvin Johnson did come back, but now he's truly the number 1 for this year. So it's funny because once I was doing the mock drafts this year or this season, he's floating around that area of Randall Cobb, Kelvin Benjamin, Sammy Watkins, and I'm and especially being a Packer fan, I'm just ooh, I kind of just want to take Golden Tate over Randall Cobb right now. And I don't want to do that for plenty of reasons because Golden Tate had the Hail Mary. He's on the Detroit Lions, so there's a lot of things I don't like about him, but there's also so much fantasy upside for this guy, and I think he's really going to have a good year. So I really like him where he is. I'd kind of take him over some of those guys that are in for him because he is that number 1. He had a great year when Calvin was gone. I think he's going to have another good year this year. So,
all right, yeah, I think I I didn't really mean what I said when I said he had it. Yeah.
Dude,
And, like,
wait a minute,
so-
wait a minute. We just stumped Walsh, Don.
No. So here's what I meant. What I really mean here is that I like Marvin Jones's price a lot more. But
Well, that's 'cause it's
relative to the two. Like if I end up with one of them, it's probably going to be Jones. That's kind of like what I was going with. But no, you guys are correct. There's a lot of reasons to like Golden Tate. He's probably going to see close to 150 targets. Everything basically that you guys went through. So yeah, I think it's a good price. I think it's a fine price.
Yeah, I mean, he's in his prime, too. I think he's like 27, too. So I think this is going to be like a big year for him.
For sure. The guy that I'm going to end up with more, though, as I said, is Marvin Jones because he's currently wide receiver 38 and the 7th pick in the 8th round. And I don't think their production is going to differ that much between the two of them, to be honest. As I said, like last year, Calvin Johnson had 150 targets, Golden Tate had 125. I wouldn't be surprised to see that now be Golden Tate with 150, Marvin Jones with 125. But if Marvin Jones is getting 120-plus targets as the guy who can be sort of like a deep threat, like a red zone target, to me he's just an obvious value sitting there in the middle of the 8th round in 12-team PPR. Like I don't see how you can let a guy who's going to get that many targets go that late in drafts, even though he's relatively unproven. Vinny, you're a resident expert on Marvin Jones. What's the opinion?
Yeah, I think it's almost criminal where he's going. It's super late. Like I was saying before, as I alluded to, that he'll probably be playing in like Calvin Johnson's spot, not necessarily replacing him, but he'll be down there in the red zone running whatever Calvin Johnson. He's way taller than I think he's 4 or 5 inches taller than Golden Tate. They're going to go to him in the red zone. Eric Ebron has been a complete disappointment, so he's going to be their red zone guy. And like you said, if the targets are going to be around 125, the red zone opportunity is there. There's no reason that Marvin Jones should be going in the middle of the 8th round. He's going to outperform his ADP almost definitely, barring any injury or anything like that. So I'm really liking Marvin Jones, especially late as hell right now.
Don?
Yeah, no, sorry, I literally just got a pretty funny meme. Oh,
God. I think funny memes are taking precedence over Marvin Jones. What kind of commitment is that, Don?
This is just, this is a little 8 year. Sorry, that was pretty funny. I'll share it later. But no.
Keep your memes to yourself.
Yeah, I don't even want to see it. I don't care how funny it is.
Fine, guys. I won't show you my meme. But I agree with everything you guys are saying. I mean, Marvin Jones really is landing in a really sweet spot, and obviously Golden Tate's not going to get everything. And again, as we've already alluded to, they're a passing team. So the next guy up is Marvin Jones, and he's like because Golden Tate's kind of like that slot guy for the most part. So Marvin Jones is like that true receiver that's going to be getting those deep passes. He's a bigger body guy. And, the people that are kind of falling behind him where you'd be drafting is like, Marcus Whedon, Steve Smith, who's like almost 40, Stephon Diggs, Travis Benjamin, Laquan Treadwell. So Marvin Jones obviously seems to be more clear-cut of a safer pick and with, quite a bit of upside there. So I really like where he's going. If you're looking for another receiver and you're in those rounds, obviously Marvin Jones would be your guy to go. And it's definitely would be a safe pick too. So I like it.
Word up. So we can all agree that he's a nice little value there. In terms of the rest of the wide positions, let's talk briefly about TJ Jones, who's being undrafted, and Andre Roberts, who's also being undrafted and was just brought in. Andre Roberts, veteran slot guy, might have a role on the team, but probably isn't going to be fantasy relevant in my opinion. TJ Jones has been like this summer's or this like off-season sort of star of like OTAs and shit like that. Like all the coaching staff are just like, hey, he's real good. So worth keeping an eye on to me, just in case of injuries, and if an opportunity comes up.
Yeah, they were saying he's going to be the slot guy, T.J. Jones.
He is? Okay.
Yeah. As of now, obviously things can change, but they were already looking forward to putting him in the slot. So, obviously not someone you would look to draft yet, but they look pretty happy with him so far.
Yeah, just a name to keep in the back of the head for that waiver wire in case of injuries or in case he breaks out. So then let's talk about Ebron at tight end. Vinny, you mentioned how he's been a relative disappointment compared to his first-round draft, the first-round pick that they spent on him a couple of years ago. He's currently going tight end 17, round, middle of the 13th round. Yeah, 13th, 14th round. I'm fine with him there.
You know what's funny? I texted Ed, and he turned in a question.
Mm-hmm.
And it just happens to be relevant to Eric Ebron, so I will read it now to you guys. And Walsh, I think I know where you're going to answer. And his question is, are you confident starting tight end roulette with Eric Ebron? Meaning you draft only Eric Ebron, and you start the season with him, and you just play the roulette wheel the rest of the season.
Yes.
All right.
Yes,
That's what I thought. You always liked Eric Ebron.
Yeah, well, I can go into the reasons why I like. He's always been efficient on a per target basis. Last year he was PPR tight end 13 on 70 targets, and he's likely going to see that increase to about 90 targets, I would think, this year. So yeah, I'm down with it. Like if he can give me like a PPR tight end 10, tight end 9 season, cool.
Well, I'm a little bit more stupid, so I'm not going to give you a statistical breakdown. It's going to be more of a gut feeling.
Oh, yeah. Stats versus guts. Let's fight on. Put your dukes up, bitch. Let's do this.
Well, I mean,
Oh, man.
Well, you know how that would end up? Just like our game of 1-on-1. We'd both take one shot.
Oh, yeah.
We'd both huff and puff and then quit.
Scoreless and
blame it on the rain.
Good point. Seriously, what are your guys' Ebron takes?
So, I mean, listen, he could finally come into his form that everyone's been hoping for, especially with the void of Calvin Johnson being that bigger body guy. They do want to go towards him at the ends in the red zone. But I still haven't seen enough where I would be okay with just Eric Ebron, even though we do like the roulette. I would like to pick someone in a mid to later round that I like a little bit better. So I don't really particularly care for Ebron. I would still even go like with a later pick of like I would go ahead and go for like a Zach Ertz or maybe even a Martellus Bennett at New England before I would go with Eric Ebron.
Yeah, I'm gonna back Eric Ebron up too. He's just shown nothing really. He's been inconsistent, and everyone's been pushing his talent. But even that, like, show me one Eric Ebron highlight. I have no idea what that looks like. Like him catching like a 1-yard pass from Stafford. That's about it. That's all I can think of. And
Walsh is gonna send you a meme of a highlight of Eric.
It's like a one-handed catch. He barely gets his feet in.
Here's your highlight, bitch.
No, but seriously, I just haven't seen much out of him, and I'm not ready to make him like my tight end that I'm going into the season with, let alone starting like on a week-to-week basis. So I'm just gonna stay away. And like you said, Don, there's a lot of guys I'd rather play than.
Yeah, and that's the point of like the tight end roulette is like, yeah, if you have to start Ebron, it's fine, but he's probably gonna be on the waivers for you to pick up.
For sure.
I can't wait to beat you guys with Eric Ebron.
That's exactly what's going to happen, at least when you play me or Don.
No, it probably won't. You guys are probably right there, and I'm dumb.
I promise you, if the reason why you beat me is because of Eric Ebron, I won't cast with you ever again.
Oh, all right. Well, I don't know if I like that. I like podcasting with you, Don.
Oh.
All right. Anyway, let's move on.
I take that back. But don't fucking beat me with Eric Ebron.
Okay, I'll try not to.
You're staring at your weekly fantasy opponent and thinking to yourself, I would love to challenge just one of his players, not his entire team. But your fantasy sports service doesn't allow you to. Now you can on the all-new No Halftime app. The No Halftime app allows you to create individual challenges using players or teams. For example, you could pit Beckham versus Brown, Cam versus Rodgers, or even Ezekiel Elliott versus AP. Creating a challenge takes seconds, and accepting challenges is even easier. No Halftime challenges can be private or public and created for the NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL, PGA, and other sports. Join today and get started. Real money and fantasy supremacy awaits you. And now you can also try No Halftime for free with $0 challenges. Visit nohalftime.com for more information and to download the No Halftime app for your iPhone or Android device. Receive a bonus by entering in the promo code LTFF at sign up. Receive a free t-shirt when you make a deposit. No Halftime, where the fantasy sports season never takes a break.
Let's get through the Vikings, guys, because I think this will be a lot shorter than the Lions, but basically some general stuff with the Vikings. According to Vegas, their over-under for wins is 9 wins right now. There's only 8 teams better than that in the NFL this year, with better than that win projection. A lot of teams are with them with 9 wins, but only 8 better. So they're expected to be pretty good. In 2015, they passed on only 51.12% of their plays. That is the third fewest, or the third lowest percentage of pass plays last year, behind only Buffalo and Carolina. They had the 10th best run blocking offensive line, according to Football Outsiders, and they were just 27th in offensive pace in the league. So basically, what that all says is what the Vikings want to do is slow the game down and run the ball a bunch, which is bad for fantasy. They don't pass the ball much, and they run the ball a lot. So let's get into the quarterbacks. Teddy Bridgewater, undrafted. There's no way you can touch him, right?
Absolutely, unless you're Shrek last year.
It's funny.
I think he learned.
It's funny because I actually was listening to the podcast on my way home about 3 hours ago of the one where Shrek's just like, you want to know why I love my boy Teddy Bridgewater? I wish we could just throw that snippet right in this podcast. But no, there is absolutely no reason for you to draft Teddy Bridgewater at all.
No, not at all.
Yep. There's the opportunity's not going to be there, and he wasn't really efficient last year. No. Let's move on to Adrian Peterson, who you should be drafting at some point. Adrian Peterson, currently running back 4, 9th pick in the first round. He was running back 2 in PPR last year. What are your guys' opinions on him? Because there's a lot of wide-ranging opinions on Adrian Peterson. Vinny, we'll start with you.
I think most of the knocks on Peterson start with his age, and that's not a fair spot to start. I know Don got him at a value last year in our draft, and a lot of people doubted him. And Adrian Peterson was RB2, and it's just Don got him. Don, where'd you get him? Pick 5, 6?
Pick
7.
No, I was pick 7.
Jesus Christ, yeah, falling that back, and now he's even further back behind David Johnson. Le'Veon Bell and Todd Gurley, I get, but David Johnson where I kind of draw the line. I think I'd go Peterson there, and. Hold on, where's my actual stat stuff? Hold on. Even if you predicted him to have less, if you think he's, from last year, he's going to have less carries, less touchdowns, less yards, he's still well ahead of most of the RBs to finish in the top 5 or top 10. So Adrian Peterson, don't care about his age. You should definitely draft him where he's going or even higher than that. There's no problem with that. He's a freak.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also I like David Johnson a lot, but I actually have AP as my number 3 running back. You can't compare Adrian Peterson to really any of the other running backs with his age because Adrian Peterson is just a different human being. He's not a human being. He's just like that. He's like a LeBron. Even if LeBron got hurt, they're just these guys that are just at their own tier that they're just going to come back and still be awesome. And AP might be 30, but he's still going to be the man. So I don't think you let that worry you. Maybe for any other regular running back or even a star running back, start worrying, but not for AP. So he's going to really be up there. He's going to have a lot of a workload. So expect a lot of numbers to go up for him, and he's still going to be a solid running back for you. So that's why he's my number 3 pick, number 3 running back.
Yeah, that's very fair. I think for me, he's my number 4 running back, but that's because I'm stupidly high on Lamar Miller. The knock on him for me isn't really the age as much as the fact that he's game script dependent. So last year in losses, he averaged about 17 touches a game, and in wins, he averaged about 25 touches a game. And 17 is still a good amount, but if you're not catching passes, which he had 30 catches on 36 targets last year, so he's not he's not going to catch no passes, but 2 catches per game isn't going to be the kind of PPR usage that's going to really make that swing for you. It's kind of just an added bonus. So the fact that he's game script dependent puts him behind guys like Le'Veon Bell and Lamar Miller for me. But he's gonna get the ball a lot, is what the Vikings told us last year with their play, and I don't see a reason for that to change.
Yeah, none at all.
All right. Jerick McKinnon is going to be his primary backup, you would think. He's currently going middle of the 12th round, running back 50 overall. Matt Asiata is also in that backfield going undrafted. What's the opinion on these two? Do we still have to worry? Like, is Matt Asiata still a thing where, like, not like a thing that you would play, but like a thing where he's going to annoy McKinnon's value in case of a Peterson injury?
No. I think McKinnon made it pretty clear cut that he was the second back last year.
Yeah, I think his last 4 or 6 games were actually pretty good.
Yeah.
He was sometimes playable at points towards the end of the season. And Jerick McKinnon's definitely a dude, man. That's fine. I just want to mention one thing about their offensive line. They brought in Alex Boone and Andre Smith. Bengals, go Bengals. But yeah, they improved the line, and it's just gonna get better. Like Walsh, you said, they're the 10th best run blocking team, so I think they're just gonna keep improving.
Absolutely. McKinnon for me, I think, is fine there. He's the clear-cut handcuff to get to AP. He won't necessarily get goal line work if AP does go down, and he will be like he doesn't have enough standalone PPR. I don't know. What do you guys think of like his standalone value with AP? Like say AP plays a 16-game season. Is there a week where you can play McKinnon?
No, I really don't think so. You can't guarantee anything in that. Okay.
So yeah, he's a handcuff. Handcuffs get taken in that range, where he's going. So I guess that's fine. Let's move on to the wide receivers. This won't take really long, but we'll start with Stefon Diggs, I guess. I'm too used to saying Stephen Curry. So Stefon Diggs. Last year started playing in the 4th game of the year. He had 9 or more targets in each of his first 4 games. But after that, he only reached 9 targets once more during the season. He had 6 double-digit PPR weeks out of 13 games, so not a great ratio. But he'll likely lead the Vikings in targets this year. Is his current price of wide receiver 42 46 in the middle of the 9th round, is that acceptable to you guys? Don, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I guess that's acceptable. I kind of see him more maybe falling a little bit farther than that. But again, he's gonna be probably the number 1 wide receiver. But there's people that you can take ahead of that. Again, he kind of falls along the lines that, like we were talking before with that Marvin Jones, where I would take like a Marvin Jones over Stefon Diggs, or maybe like a John Brown or a Kevin White from Chicago, something like that, before I'd be going Stefon Diggs.
Yeah, I don't like Stefon Diggs a lot. I think a lot. He's being overdrafted. I think he's going he's going.
He's going right ahead of Travis Benjamin, Willie Snead, and Sterling Shepard. I'd rather have all 3 of them than
Diggs. And I was going to say it's fine in that area just because people are going off of what he did in that 4-game stretch and then did dick like the rest of the season. He only had like 4 good games, and then Tavon Austin, right after. A little bit of Tavon action there. I'd rather have Tavon. I'd even rather have Torrey Smith than him, to be honest.
Oh,
I don't hate that either. I don't hate that take.
I kind of hate the Torrey Smith one, but
well, why, Don?
There's been no fantasy relevance for Torrey Smith in like forever.
Let's keep the Torrey Smith takes for the San Francisco podcast, I guess. But
good call.
Anyway, Diggs to me, like I think he'll have weeks that are great, but good at least. But the low passing volume on the team means like his targets are going to be variable from week to week, and he just you won't know when to play him, I think. So let's talk about Treadwell, Laquan Treadwell, who was their first round draft pick. Interesting prospect. He ran a 4.65 40, so he is definitely not fast. But he's 6'2", 221, a smart and polished route runner, and he has great ball skills is his big thing. He could be a nice red zone target for them. He's only going 4 wide receivers behind Stefon Diggs currently, wide receiver 46, first pick of the 10th round. Are you guys interested in Treadwell at all, Vinny?
I'm not very interested, but I'm also very sour that the Vikings sniped him a pick before the Bengals during the draft. I was really upset. And then we wind up with Tyler Boyd. So we'll talk about that at the next podcast, though. I'm not a huge fan. I just think like all the reasons we've been mentioning, not a lot of passing volume. Teddy Bridgewater is bad. He's a rookie. Like there's too many variables. I mean, it's late and the price is fine, whatever. But like, how many people took Kevin White in the same spot and got fucked last year?
And Laquan Treadwell came off of an injury, right? Didn't he get injured?
It was a pretty bad one too.
Last
It
year.
was,
With his knee?
yeah, it was ACL, MCL.
No, I thought it was like his collarbone, wasn't it?
I thought it was his knee.
I don't know.
Could be his pelvis. Who knows?
Definitely pelvis. No, let's take a look. I want to look that up real quick. It was. Oh wait, it was a leg injury. Yeah, it was definitely not collarbone. But that was like very early on in his college career when he suffered that injury. So it's it shouldn't really affect him.
I don't know. I just see a few names too that are right behind him, like Willie Snead. I even like Sterling Shepard from the Giants better. Then I would kind of shoot for Sterling Shepard before Laquan Treadwell or Tavon Austin. So, but if you want to take that flyer, later in the rounds and you just want to try it out, why not? But there's other picks out there for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'd rather have him than Diggs because I think he has more red zone upside. And if I'm going to take a risk on like, I want it to be like the risk that a touchdown goes to him rather than the upside with Diggs is that he's going to get 10 targets and get a bunch of yards. The upside with Treadwell is that he gets lucky on a red zone play. So I think that's probably where I'd rather go out of the two of them, but I'm not chomping at the bit to draft either.
That's very fair.
Yeah.
They also have Jarius Wright, Cordell Patterson, Charles Johnson, Moritz Boehringer, who's the guy from Germany, the first German football player.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. I do remember him. Yeah.
That's why I put him in there. I saw his name and I was like, oh yeah, that guy. You can't really draft any of them though.
Yeah. No.
Right? Yeah.
No. Not at all. But I guess the one that I guess I would be interested to, out of all those guys that would be undrafted, that would possibly have one of the more decent years would maybe Charles Johnson because they were kind of high on him earlier last year too before he was injured. But again, not fantasy relevant really.
Fair point though.
Yeah, fair enough. So let's move on to tight end where Kyle Rudolph is also going undrafted. They have, I believe, second year rookie. That's fucking stupid.
The second year rookie.
Their second year player Michael Pruitt, and it's spelled Mike Cole rather than Michael.
First year sophomore.
Yeah, right. Rudolph's going undrafted. Is he worth being in the roulette pool, or do we not care?
In the roulette pool, maybe mid-season if he's doing something and it's against a good matchup. But Kyle Rudolph is extremely touchdown dependent. We're already very down on this passing offense. Kyle Rudolph's been like a disappointment for the past few years. No consistency in catches or targets. It's been end zone or bust every once in a while, so no.
Yeah, Don hit the nail on the head. I've been trying to draft this guy so he plays a full 16 games, and then he finally does last year, and he catches 49 passes, and he's just, like Don said, touchdown dependent, getting at the maximum 40 yards. Like, there are better tight ends in this massive tight end pool. So,
Eric Ebron.
Eric Ebron. Yeah. Yes, definitely over Rudolph. That's just no chance.
I was a Kyle Rudolph truther for like most of my adult life, and last year I finally gave it up, and was just like that was one of the. Like I've had a lot of bad takes, and that was like my take that like when Kyle Rudolph was a rookie, he was going to be the next elite tight end in the NFL is potentially my worst take. So I'm not in on him.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Do we have anything else to talk about with these teams?
Just the Vikings defense. They were ranked 8th last year. They'll probably be really good this year. So if you're going to draft them, do it.
Cool.
Word.
I like it. I'd agree with that. All right, so I think that's going to do it for us. Good job, guys. We made it through. We talked about the Lions and the Vikings. We're going to have Don and Rogers hopefully back at some point to talk about the Packers and the Bears. And then I guess after this, we're going on to the AFC North. So, Vinny, I'm sure you're getting pumped up on that.
Oh, yes. I cannot wait. Maybe I'll host for that one. Special treat for everybody.
Hosting.
It's gonna take him 45 minutes to start. Chug 3 beers.
I might just cry for 30 minutes about the Jeremy Hill fumble, but the rest we can talk about the Bengals.
Fair enough. It sounds like a good idea. Lots of crying, guys. Lots of crying coming up on the podcast, so get ready. All right, well, yeah, that's all we got for you guys. So keep in mind we do have the Let's Talk Fantasy Football gear giveaway coming up at some time. I thought it was going to be this week, but then Shrek left on vacation, and we were left with we're like puppies whose like mother got killed by a hunter or whatever. Or is that Bambi? Isn't that the story of Bambi but with deer? Or am I mixing that up?
I mean, I was gonna say we're more like puppies that got left in the car with the windows up.
Oh yeah.
in extreme heat.
Dogs in a hot car.
Well, once LTFF comes even a little bit more established, like we'll have rules, like where you have like 14 like vacation days for a year, but our rules will be like Shrek has no vacation days ever.
Shrek's on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So anyway, we'll keep that going, and we'll keep these previews going for you guys. So hope you're enjoying them, and keep an eye out for the next one. And with that, guys, we'll catch you on the flip side.
This has been Let's Talk Fantasy Football. Thanks for listening.